Ladies and gentlemen, here are the top international news stories. In France, on this 19th of May 2025, nothing is going well. The taxis are on strike. The taximeters have gone on strike. And why this strike on the 19th of May? First of all, it should be noted that this is going to be the 5th time the taximeters have gone on strike. But if I'm not mistaken, no, the 7th time. The taximeters are protesting because Emmanuel Macron's government, having run out of money in the state coffers, is looking to get it elsewhere. And it's on the backs of the taximeters, especially the taximeters who work in the healthcare sector, who transport patients. It's on their backs that Emmanuel Macron wants to make money. Today, May 19th, 2025, all of France is paralyzed. In several cities across France, everything is at a standstill. We know that in most cities around the world, it's the taxis that keep the city alive. Because you have foreigners who are there, you have some people who are there without any means of transportation and who need to travel long distances. So, in countries that claim to be developed, the government puts in place a system that allows it to keep an eye on the taxis. So it's the government that sets the taxi fares. But Emmanuel Macron's government has already drafted a bill aimed at drastically lowering the amount, the fares. So that's why the taxi drivers are not happy at all, because it doesn't work in their favor. The taxi drivers say that the current fare should remain in place. Why lower the fare? Why? What have they done? Isn't the French government seeing their suffering? They're already suffering. But the government doesn't see it. The government doesn't understand. The government wants to force them into endless suffering. But meanwhile, the French government beats its chest. Emmanuel Macron beats his chest to say that France will be at the forefront on the international stage when it comes to financing the continuation of the conflict in Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing is going right in France anymore. The protests that have been happening in France lately, you don't even see that in Africa. In Africa, protests are generally political in nature. But economic protests involving groups that have nothing to do with politics, like taxi drivers, or farmers, when you see them taking to the streets now, it means things are really not going well. So, as we all know, in the eyes of the world, Emmanuel Macron tries to present himself and to present France as a country that is thriving. A country that, obviously, has the means to support its policies. In any case, a country that is at the top. But deep down, at home, in the French family, nothing is going right. Nothing is going right at all. Nothing is working anymore. So, we're going to dig deeper, ladies and gentlemen. But before we continue, I ask you to share this video conference. It needs to be shared as widely as possible. At the very moment we are speaking, as I am holding this video conference, it is exactly 2:15 p.m. GMT. President Vladimir Putin is, and I say this conditionally, even though everyone has confirmed it, he is supposedly on the phone with Donald Trump. Everything that will come out of this, if the conversation actually took place, we will come back to it. We will analyze it. And if it didn't happen, we will also revisit that. So, according to official information, on this 19th of May, 2025, French taxi drivers are on a nationwide strike. They are blocking all of Paris. They are blocking the city of Pau, Toulouse, and other cities to protest against the new medical transport fares. They are denouncing a threat to their income and to access to health care. First, their incomes are under threat. And second, this new reform could mean that patients will no longer be able to be transported to the hospital. At the very moment we are speaking, they have stopped transporting patients. Yet we know that patients have scheduled appointments. Today, for example, there are many patients who should be going to their various hospitals for dialysis and everything that goes along with it. But everything is at a standstill, as you can see in the footage. So, French roads are paralyzed by a massive strike of taxi drivers mobilized against the new pricing for medical transport, introduced by the health insurance. In Paris, more than 5,000 vehicles began converging as early as 7 in the morning on Boulevard de Raspail, causing go-slow operations. In the city of Pau, the hometown of Prime Minister François Bayrou, 1,000 taxis are blocking the train station and the main roads. So, things are not going well. But Emmanuel Macron acts as if he doesn't hear anything. He turns a deaf ear. Why does he turn a deaf ear? Because obviously, Emmanuel Macron doesn't have the means to meet the demands of the taxi drivers. The only solution he has is this: lower the taxi meter rates, cut their earnings. That's how France can keep going. We've told you here that France doesn't have any raw materials. France survived only thanks to Africa. But today, in several African countries, especially the main ones, from which they drew their resources, everything is gone. If France had the money, they would subsidize, they would actually increase the fare, they would raise it, and the French government would subsidize this increase. That's why we have a lady. There you go. I believe she's a woman. Sabrina Pena, 51 years old. This lady says she has been driving a taxi for 27 years in Lyon. She says the taxis, there you go. For 27 years, she has been driving taxis. And 10% of her business comes from transporting patients. She does 10% of her taxi work with patients. She regrets the drop in fares. She says that in recent years, everything has gone up in France. The price of fuel has increased. The price of vehicles. The price of tolls has gone up. Bottles of water for customers. Everything has increased. So why don't we want to, on the contrary, raise the fare, but instead we just keep lowering it? So she views this negatively. She denounces it. So I'm sharing this information with you to show everyone who still has doubts that nothing is going well in France. Stop counting on France. France has always used cunning to trick us, to trap us, and then take advantage of our wealth. It is on this foundation that France is built. But as the wind of awakening has swept across Africa in recent years, our eyes are now open. We have managed to make France leave, and we have cut all ties except for a few rare African states. But even if their economies are combined, they do not allow France to maintain the same level of luxury it once enjoyed. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the top story in international news. Please share it as widely as possible in all the groups you can. I'll be back with more news for you shortly. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.